Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. First of all, I want to start by soothing my LDS viewers by saying if this is something you don't want to watch or this is something that you feel might give you some spiritual turmoil, please click off the video. I'm not here to cause anybody spiritual turmoil or make them question their belief. I'm here to genuinely make you question for sure, but I'm not here to cause you any pain. So if you don't feel like you're ready for that, please click off this video now. Secondly, I want to kind of talk about the main argument whenever I do talk about Mormonism, and that is, oh, well, you talk about Mormonism, but you never talk about Catholicism, and you go right for our history. What about the history of Catholicism? First of all, I totally agree with you, and just so you know, look at my channel. I have many videos talking about Catholicism and its evil history and how ridiculous some of the stuff is in there. First of all, though, I am in Utah. I'm in Utah, and Mormonism is very prominent in my life. My whole family is LDS, so it's something that I do feel pressured to talk about, because it's genuinely in my face every single day. And for you to be like, oh, well, you don't talk about other people's history, and why are you attacking our history, but you don't talk Catholicism's history? I do. I 100% do. I've read the Crusades. I've read about it. I've heard of the Malachites, and I've tried to read the Bible. It's pretty difficult. Don't get me wrong. I've seen the evil and horrible things that their God does and commands. But might I say, your God is very similar. You do come up with quite a few stories to try and soothe my pain when it comes to that, and I commend you for it. It's a very beautiful, warm-hearted belief, for the most part, right? You're coming from a place of love, and I respect that. There's nothing more Christian, but I'm still going to point out the crazy stuff. I'm still going to point out the LDS history. It's prominent. It happened in North America less than, a little less than 200 years ago. I don't really know. And it's insane that LDS church has so many members today, and some of them are really freaking smart. It actually blows my mind. And to your credit, right? A lot of these smart people are LDS, and like they love it, and I don't want to step on that. I respect it. I will say it's a crazy story that I don't ever see myself believing, not even a little bit. But that's coming from somebody who's agnostic. I probably will be agnostic for the rest of my life. I hope that I have some sort of amazing spiritual event. I would say I'm non-resistant, non-belief. I am totally open to some sort of spiritual event or something that would change my mind. But I think it would have to be pretty powerful, right? I would have to have an incredible spiritual event or some very incredible feeling, something along those lines. And it hasn't happened yet. But, I'm open to it. As far as the history goes, if I did have that powerful spiritual event, why would I pick Mormonism? That's one of my biggest questions when I look at beliefs. Why does somebody pick this? Why is this somebody's favorite belief? One thing that I find very interesting is the idea of, what's the word? Self-righteousness. I think that there are some beliefs, I'm not saying that Mormonism in particular is this, but there are some beliefs that people get a good feeling by feeling better than one another. And, I already know that there's LDS people jumping into the comments right now, like, oh, you just think we're judgmental and blah, 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 blah. You are. I hate to be that upfront about it, and I know it's a touchy topic, but from somebody who isn't LDS or grew up LDS and left the church, it is hard to talk to you reasonably. If I'm here to talk theology and philosophy, I've only met one Mormon in my life that is open to it, and he seems very on the fence about it in general. Devoted LDS people, the second you start talking about philosophy and theology, it's like a tone out. It's like, mm-hmm, mm-hmm, and no response. They won't give you a response. It's terrifying. It reminds me of Jehovah's Witness a lot. Because the idea of talking to somebody like me is the idea that your salvation is at risk. I'm a danger. And I don't think that's how a religion should look at anybody. if your religion is correct and all God's children are made in the image of Him and whatnot, I think you should hear what I have to say. I think you should try and listen and try to come up with an answer to my questions. Questioning shouldn't make your belief like shatter. It should either strengthen it or make you rethink it. The idea that I'm dangerous is so sad. I love to talk to all kinds of religious people, and I gotta say, most religious people are open to that kind of stuff, to philosophical and theological conversations, for me bringing up their history, for me asking questions about it. LDS Church is very much not. Even if you go to a bishop, right, and you start talking about, okay, explain to me this. How come I'm not allowed to go to the temple if I don't pay tithing? Why is tithing such a core part of your belief? Jesus flipped over the tables in the temple. Where that is in the Bible is heavily debated because it's supposedly in two places. But he did. He refused to have this ideology that you would make money off of God. And that's exactly what your church does. You demand 1/10 of people's income to be able to worship Him correctly. And now you can say all this like, oh, you don't have to pay tithing to be LDS. You do. I have to pay tithing to enter the celestial kingdom. I genuinely do. Sure, I understand the idea of sacrifice, right? You have to sacrifice. You have to sacrifice to be a part of this club. We're not going to use the money for anything malice. Here's the deal, though. Why can't I sacrifice by giving it to a homeless person? Why can't I sacrifice it by giving it to the needy or people that can't pay their rent that month? Why can't I sacrifice it by doing service for others? I find these to be far more Christian things than to give 1/10 of my paycheck to a $200 billion corporation, if not way more. If we include other companies, I'm sure it's in the 400 billions. The LDS Church is one of the most private and secretive organizations on the planet. And I genuinely believe that. Temple ordinances are told to be kept secret. Back in the day, before temple ordinances were changed up a little bit, it was demanded that you would kill yourself before revealing temple ordinances. What? Now, correct me if I'm wrong. I do not think anything like that has ever been a part of Christianity or Catholicism or Eastern Orthodox. I don't think there's anything there that ever occurred to where it's like, hey, you better not reveal our secrets or you gotta cut your own throat. Oh my God. And it's not like that's it's a super new thing that changed, right? Like, this is 40s, the 1940s. Holy fuck. How am I as an agnostic supposed to feel about that? It's very Masonic. If you look up Mason rituals, the LDS Church basically copied them like 1-to-1 and then slapped God and Christ onto it. It's like, whoa, holy shit. Yeah, you gotta understand, like, this is weird for us to see. Tell us honestly. I don't want you to come to my house and lie to me about what you believe to get me into your church and then slowly introduce these kind of weird ideas. Be straight up honest with me. I've talked to many missionaries, and I don't want to focus on that. Let's not focus. I don't focus on the history of the church. Let's talk about it now. And I'm like, okay. Temple ordinances, secret handshakes, secret hand signs to get into heaven. What's that about? And they don't have an answer for me. It's very like, oh, it's almost like for the first time they thought that this is something weird to somebody on the outside. Because it is. It is extremely strange. First of all, before I end this video, I want to talk about the idea that sexuality is just horrible in the LDS Church. Sex shouldn't be talked about. It shouldn't be done unless you're trying to procreate. Sex is like a very, like, more sacred than sacred. If you beat your meat, they want you to talk to a bishop about it. They want you to be like, hey, repent for it. I'm sorry, God, that I beat my meat that you gave me and my hand that you gave me. Why? Why are we shaming people? First of all, that's not a good way to help people stop eating their meat. If you think that beating meat every day is a problem, let me tell you something. Telling 13-year-old boys that if you do it, you're an abomination, you're not helping anything. In fact, you are causing so much mental turmoil in a child like that, right? They are just living their life, being curious, being kids going through puberty and having hormones. Let them figure it out. Stop shoving it down their throat that they're an abomination. They should feel sorry for what they did. Do you have any idea how much mental turmoil you've caused people over the last 100 years? Like, holy shit, I'm sure people have committed genuine suicide over the. I'm confident that people have committed suicide on the idea that their sexuality is incorrect, or that they're just addicted to masturbation, or that they are ashamed of themselves because God didn't create them perfectly. Holy fuck. Like, I understand this idea of three kingdoms is supposed to be like, oh well, you're never really gonna go to hell unless you do something crazy. You shouldn't feel sorry. You shouldn't feel bad. But you gotta understand, when you say something like God's infinite love and infinite joy and perfect kingdom where you can become gods and increase infinitely, that makes me feel like I'm not good enough. That makes everybody feel like they're not good enough. Okay, I have to be perfect to enter this kingdom. Nobody's perfect. I hate to break this to you. I guarantee you nobody's entering that celestial kingdom. I guarantee you many people that are in your church right now have committed horrifying sins that even I disagree with. And I'm like, holy fuck. And they have repented for it, and that's why they get in. What the fuck? I understand people make mistakes, and that repenting is like this beautiful process of, oh, I'm a sinner, I'm a sinner, God, I love you. But it's different when like these people become gods themselves. Like, okay, I have to be perfect, but I can still molest a child and just say sorry for it. Oh my God. But God forbid you're gay. All right? God forbid you like men, you like penis. Ooh, you better be celibate or enter a mixed orientation marriage. Otherwise, you will never enter the celestial kingdom. And let me tell you something, celibacy has horrible mental health effects. People genuinely jump off of buildings because of celibacy. Mixed orientation marriages, the divorce rate is 4 times higher than the average divorce rate. Almost 90% of them all end up in divorce. Don't do it. Don't do it. It's not a good thing. Don't force yourself to love a woman or to procreate children with a woman when you are not that sexual orientation. If you feel like I love men, I like men, not even as like a sexual perversion thing, which is what they love to say. Oh, it's just sexual perversion, Satan's tempting you. Let me tell you something. Being a homosexual is incredible. It's amazing. It's amazing. It's just as amazing as somebody who's straight. You can have so much love, so much joy, so much happiness, so much care for one another through homosexuality. You know what's not amazing? Being a homosexual through the Church of Latter-day Saints. That is like suicide inducing, and there's evidence to that. My issue is, right, a lot of people like to say, oh, the parameters to where people say the LDS Church is a cult. Apple would be a cult. And I would kind of agree with you, except for the fact that there's also a harm continuum in that same programming, right? There's a harm chart, basically. Does this cause people harm? Does this cause them turmoil in their life, or does it genuinely improve them? I'm sure that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints does improve some people's lives. I'm also confident that people who jump off of bridges due to this church. I'm confident that people kill themselves or hate themselves because of the church. And that is the problem. How much harm did you cause? A lot. The suicide rate for homosexuals, youth under the age of 18 in Utah is 7 times higher than anywhere else. I know the reason. I am 100% confident in the reason. Because they feel like they're not good enough for God. And that's a sickening thing to think. I think it's just as bad. Okay, no, I'm not gonna throw the shade here for that. You know, it to me it's like excluding black people from the priesthood or from the temple. You're judging somebody based on the way that they were created and not giving them certain privileges. That's disgusting. You know, this, what was going on with the priesthood was equally disgusting, horrific. A lot of people think that this was like a really minor thing, like, oh, we just had some racist leaders, guys. No, you genuinely believed, and you still do believe, that people with black skin are cursed because of horrible things that they've done. I don't know if you've seen the short film that came out in the 80s about it, but there's literally a little girl in short film that was Indian, and she was like, I feel so bad about myself. And then she followed the 10 Commandments and did all that, became righteous, and then her skin turned white. She was like, look at my white skin, isn't it so pretty? Holy shit. I know it was a different time, but goddamn. What the fuck? Black people are beautiful. Indians are beautiful. They're incredible people. I've met so many amazing people that are not white. And I've met some real fucking douchebags that are white. Your belief does not make sense in that case. Your history does not make sense. I'd love to make another video about your guys' history. But, you know, that'll take me another few hours. You know, I have a lot to think about it. The Book of Abraham is a crazy one. Blood Atonements, Joseph Smith as a whole. You know, I'm not a fan of the guy. In fact, I very much dislike Joseph Smith. I think he was a cheater, a liar, and a scam artist. But let's talk about it. You know, let's not yell at each other and say, "Oh, one's wrong and one's not wrong." I genuinely am interested into why you believe the way that you believe. I genuinely love the community, and I hope that I'm welcome back. I do want to like ask the question: am I still welcome at an LDS church, even though I think these things, or am I just a danger? Like that seems to be a very common belief, is that I'm just like a danger to your salvation. So let me know. Anyway, thank you all for watching. It was a great time, and I love you. Have a good night.